When you have an idea that you believe strongly in, and this is advice for a lot of people, go for it.
Welcome to the Measure Success podcast, where I talk with top leaders about effective strategies that inspire success. Excited to have with us today Rich Kahn. He is a seasoned tech entrepreneur, co-founder, and CEO of Anura.io, company focused on ad detection and mitigation. What does that mean? He helps advertisers and business spot and block fake or harmful traffic. So you're making sure you're paying for only real human engagement. The great news is he has a lot of experience, over 3 decades of experience. He's been Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, finalist for Best Executive of the Year. Rich, welcome to the Measure Success podcast today.
Thanks for having me today.
You bet. All right, Rich. So I always like to start out with the story, kind of like the crazy story, something that's a little bit different than you've experienced in the past, of where either through your insights or different things you work with, that's kind of like a head changer. Like, this has really changed the way how things have gone for somebody in business or for yourself. Share with us a good story to kind of get our audience going about that story.
All right. I'm going to actually give a story that I haven't spoken to on a podcast before, because I know it's always nice to have new content out there. I've been in the space, like I said, digital marketing for the last 33 years, been doing it for a long time, running businesses forever. I think I've built at this point 6 or 7 multi-million-dollar web properties, bootstrapping. So I know how to get an idea off the ground and making money in proof of concept, right? In fact, one of my most successful companies in its tenure did over 100 million in sales. So got that level of experience. So it turns out my cousin, I happened to meet with him at a trade show. I was at a trade show up in his area in Chicago at the time. And we went out for dinner and we were talking and stuff like that. And we had a great conversation. And he tells me that he's in the cybersecurity space. Now we're this company that I'm in now is a subset of cybersecurity, but he's full on cybersecurity. Like, this is what they do. Cybersecurity got like 50 plus different products and all that kind of stuff. But at the time he was working for another cybersecurity company, and he was one of the guys doing the audits and everything else. And like most people who, most entrepreneurs, he's like, you know what? I think I can do this better. I think I could do it. I can make a lot more money, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, talk to me about business. And I'm like, all right. So we gave him a lot of advice because, he was married, had a couple of kids. I have 4 kids. How'd you run a business with 4 kids? We're going through like things that helped us, things that we would have done differently if we, knew what we knew today. We had a long conversation, and then we met up. We were at another family wedding. We had some more conversations on, and he said, I'm finally going to do it. I'm like, well, don't. I said, here's the thing. When you have an idea that you believe strongly in, and this is advice for a lot of people, go for it. Because I guarantee 20, 30 years from now, if you tried and failed, you won't regret that you tried and failed.
That's right.
But if you didn't try, you'll regret. So go for it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And so he goes off and takes off and does it. And I want to say his company is probably about 10 years old at this point. And he went and, we have very different mindsets and everything else. And his company just took off like a bat out of hell. He ended up with a really key client in his space where he got an opportunity to prove himself. They gave him the entire book of business. And that company led to many other big companies that he's gone into. And now he's at a stage where he shows up at the office once or twice a month. He does a leadership meeting and he does an accounting meeting. And that's pretty much what he shows up for. And the company's growing like crazy. So now I'm calling him for advice. So it's always good. It's, he's doing things differently than I do. And obviously what he's doing is working better than what my stuff is doing. So why not? I call him from time to time.
I first of all, I love the essence behind that. And being myself, I've been in 10 different companies that have at least doubled in size. I completely agree. Now, it's interesting. I also have 4 kids, Rich, and I'm married my high school sweetheart. So, and when I opened up 40 Strategy, we almost had I think the biggest fight we ever had. She was like, not again. Okay. But it's interesting looking back, it was definitely one of the best decisions I ever made. And often, sometimes the best decisions come from, you're going to have to overcome massive obstacles, right, to accomplish it. But if just like you mentioned, right, if you believe that you can do something better and create real value, you owe it to yourself and to your family, right, to get things done. And I'm not saying being reckless when we make these decisions. I mean, there
Mhm.
was very thoughtful when I went forward with this. I did a ton of moonlighting, kind of getting things up and going. But I agree with you. You don't regret. It's like my life is. It's funny, even though I've been in multiple entrepreneurial companies, this one in particular was a life changer. It completely changed my lifestyle, my experiences, and a big reason why, Rachel, why I went to this was because I was going to miss out. I got asked to run a global consulting company, that a global one. Well, I would have missed my kids' high school and college playing careers in sports, and so I made a very family oriented decision, but it still was a risk based decision, right? Because it would have been easy to take quote unquote another CFO or CEO job working for somebody else. And so, anyways, I appreciate you saying that. For you, as you've become an entrepreneur, you've been in different seats. What to you, being a family, having a family, being married, what has been the biggest challenge for you, and what's helped you overcome it to become more successful and still be married and still have a relationship with your kids?
Well, let me add something to that. So, okay, I also married my high school sweetheart. We've been together since we're 15,
Wow.
and we started that business together.
Wow. No kidding.
So add additional. So we're day and night, like we were working everything. We're in the trenches together. I was running, the actual, technology behind it because I was the original chief developer of the software. I was the chief salesperson, when we first had to get this out and sell it. And meanwhile, she was handling the finances, the HR, all the other stuff that you have to running a business that, she was able to handle. So you start looking at stuff like that, it really adds a lot of stress to a relationship. Um, but one of the things, growing up, going into this business, my brother-in-law was in the car business and he was working like 90 hours a week, worked every holiday, every weekend. And when I was starting a business, he says, one thing you want to do is not miss anything with your kids. Now, my kids at this time, when I was
Mm,
first starting one of my first businesses, was they were still young. So I made it a commitment. I was at every doctor's appointment. I took them to all the practices that they needed to be taken to. I was at every single game they went to. I mean, I didn't miss anything. So I could have invested that time in my business. And in fact, I just spoke to a colleague of mine who's got 100 million. I think he holds the record for the fastest company to go from zero to 100 million in sales a year.
wow.
Um, a very powerful, very big agency. And we sat down, we were talking, and I'm like, and we just got to talking. He's 30, I think he's 36, 37 years old, young kid, a kid, I say, right? Young guy. And he's got, I think, a 3-year old and a 5-year old. And he's like in the same situation. Like, how do I balance? Like, I'm like, look, you've got over 1,000 employees that are running this business. It runs without you. Granted, all the big speaking engagements, they want you, but like 30 years from now, are you going to regret not spending more time in the business or not spending more time with your kids? I always try to look at, like, take, for example, you, right? So you
Yes.
made this decision to start this business. What if you went back in time and made the different decision to take that global job and spent more time on the road than with your family? Today, you would be regretting that,
That's right.
right? So again, you make those decisions now. It's tough. You look at like an Elon Musk, right? I think the dude works like 100 hours a week. He talks about all times like, but like, that's not the life I want. You know, I don't want to be a billionaire. There's, I don't, I don't have a need for that. I want to be comfortable, obviously, but I want to spend more time with my family. That to me is more important. So we built a life around. In fact, my wife literally last year just stepped away from the business. We hired 3 people. The last person we hired just started Monday to take over the different roles that she was doing, or I should say, she was juggling. She was juggling 3 roles. She was juggling marketing, finance, operations, and human resources. So we finally just hired the last person to take over, so she can be a full time grandparent.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you.
So now it's different. I come home. How was your day? Like, we never had those conversations because it was the same day.
That's right. Yeah, that's I first of all, thank you for kind of going through that and sharing that. I think once again, those are listening. I know we have a lot of business owners that listen to this, and CEOs and other people are considering and thinking, right, of being in business. And you do have to think through all this. Yeah, you have to think through the elements of what matter, right? What do you prioritize your life? And I could say with confidence, I've given up millions of dollars in wealth because I wanted to have a relationship with my wife, have a relationship with my kids. I valued that more. Now, just to clarify, we've had
Hey,
a lot
wait,
of
quick question. Quick question.
yeah,
Do you regret that decision?
absolutely not. That's where I was getting at.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely not. And just to clarify, we're doing just fine, right?
Yeah.
And,
Financially,
and
yeah.
yeah, you bet. And so yeah, I think it's a super important. Once again, I don't judge people who make these other decisions. You have to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
You know, holy cow, if Elon Musk wasn't spending 100 hours, and once again, I'm not making judgment on Elon Musk's personal life and his political stuff, but from a impact in the world, unbelievable, right?
Yeah. From .comer to, putting people on moon on Mars is the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Unbelievable, right? When people have that passion and mission to complete things. And so I am grateful for them, if that makes sense behind it. But for my legacy, that exactly that's not my ambition, right? That's not there for it. And it's okay, right? It's okay to have those different pieces around it. And it's um and I'm okay too with people who are like, hey, I'm okay. I just want to show up my work and be 9 to 5. Because being in business and entrepreneur person, there is no 9 to 5.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, you're a business owner. You're always right, a business owner. Go through things.
It's funny. Actually, we used to be able, when we were a little bit smaller, I used to be able to tell you what broke, who quit when I was on vacation. Every vacation, some major disaster blew up. Like someone decided, like a key leadership person decided that's a good time to leave the company,
Yep.
or, Google ended up blocking, a subset of our network that we had to fix. Like I used to be able to count all that because again, my wife would be like, "What are you doing? We're on vacation." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be able to relax if I don't fix this problem." And it
Right.
was like every vacation we took, there was always something. But like I said, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you eventually get to the point. Like for us, we're we're one of the few companies that are 90% in office. So we're in office,
Wow.
and I'm old school. I am a big believer in being able to get up and walk over to somebody's desk and have a conversation. I am not a fan of the work remote. It's just too many distractions. In fact, when I first started my first company, we had an office in the house. I'm like, I need an office because there's too many distractions.
Yeah.
The kids running around. This is going. I when I'm at work, I want to work. When I'm at home, I want to be home. Now, of course, with the introduction of the smartphone, that thing rings and you're like, oh, I got to get that email. Oh, I got to handle that text message. Like, unfortunately, it is what it is. But at least it's minimal distraction for the most part. But like, yeah, we did. I'm a big fan of in office, and maybe it is a popular decision for some companies, not for others. But I'm like I said, there is a situation like we have some people that are remote because we just haven't been able to find them locally. And I'm in a small area, so a very small pool of people. We're in Middletown, Delaware. Well, when I moved down here, there was 2,000 people in the town. Now there's 25,000. That's our big town.
Wow.
Um, so again, still small pool of people to find who you're looking for. So I've had to at times go, with some remote positions, but it's tough because they don't get the same training because they're just, they're like I'm at the lunch table and everyone's like, oh, how's this working? How's that working? I had a question on this. Like I didn't want to email you or just, you don't get that when they're remote and it's tough. Like it's just I know everyone likes the idea of going remote, but I'm old school. Maybe I'll change, maybe I won't.
So what's nice is you noted just say, hey, we actually you have both, meaning in terms of it, you do have some remote employees and then you have your in-person employees. If you don't mind, how many employees you have, just for context?
25 to 30.
Okay, okay. So what have you noticed? Because obviously there was the whole COVID world period, right? When a lot of people went fully remote for a while at least, and then they did or didn't go back fully or not to in person. Why for you have you found more value in the in person settings?
Well, first off, it's harder to build company culture when you're all disconnected, right? And the only time you show up is to a Zoom meeting, right? You show up to the meeting, you have an agenda, you get the meeting done, you hang up. You don't call somebody to just shoot the shit, so to speak. And that's kind of where like I'm walking to the we have a central kitchen, lots of snacks and food, and we have this massive coffee machine that makes like 64 different kinds of coffee. So anytime you go to the kitchen, somebody's out there making a cup of coffee. And you just talk about how was your weekend? Like human nature. Like things that don't come across for remote companies. I've talked to a lot, like, and so our, it was like, well, I like the flexibility, and I like the, what was the term that they used? I like the ability um, to be able to work and not have to worry about, anyone bothering me. But you know what? So many reports I read, people get distracted. Like we track everything our guys do because we're cybersecurity, and if something goes on, I have to be able to pull data. There's a lot of distractions for some people. Like some people work well remote, some don't. But I just like to be able to, like, before I walked over my chief product officers, and we just shot what was going on over the weekend, because we got for us, we're off on Monday, so we got a little bit of a long weekend, checking out, saying, what are you doing for the weekend? Like, just getting to I mean, he's been with me 15, 16 years now, but just getting to know what's going on in his head. And then, oh, by the way, let's talk about the project again. Those conversations I find with my remote employees just don't come up. In fact, I have a development team in Texas. You know, I should say an extension to my development team in Texas, but they're not remote. They work in an office. We have an office down there. There's just two of
Mm,
them, but we got a little, shared space, and they work in the office. And they're like, we could work remote. And I'm like, yeah, but then you can't talk to each other like the
right.
way you would normally. Like if you're just sitting there, hey, by the way, hey, let's jump on the whiteboard. Like you're missing all that. Like to me, that's important. It's part. So I'll spend the extra money to have an office down there just to have that extra cultural fit. And I find that in fact, so our cultural fit is, and again, I have some pet peeves. So as I get older, I have more and more pet peeves. One of the pet peeves is I expect everybody in by 8 o'clock. Right?
Mhm.
We're an EOS shop. I don't know if you guys are familiar with
Yep,
EOS.
yep, familiar with that.
So
Yep.
we're an EOS shop, and they believe if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time. Right? I believe that. But come 5 o'clock, I'm kicking your butt out of the office. Like, go
Oh, good
home and
for you.
spend time with the family. We don't have people work unless there's an outage, which almost never happens. Then one or two people get involved, like the CTO get involved to solve the issue. But I don't want to hear from you after
Mm,
hours. There's nothing super important that's going on that we need to address. Now, if you're a salesperson and somebody emails you, hey, great, here's my calendar. Let's schedule a simple email. If they want to do that, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm fine until I wait till the next morning. Support requests come in. They know that we respond back to support requests within 1 business hour. 1 business hour. So if it comes in after hours, first thing in the morning when you get in, answer it then. Like, and we tell people when you're on vacation, I don't want to bother you. So make sure if something goes wrong, there's a procedure or process that we can follow to fix that issue. If not, I hate to say it, but I'm going to call you and get you to fix it. But it's very rare for us to do that. So again, our work-life balance is we're here from 8, but you get kicked out by 5.
that's awesome. I love it that you have, created that, and because it's that's uncommon, right? It's uncommon to have that culture, and so you have been able to create it, but you're also walking the walk of like, hey, we want you in on time, which is hard for different type of people, right? To be able to do that, but you create that consistency, and then you have the other side behind it, what you just said there, which is no, it's get out the door, and so you have to have people that are feel pretty amazing by that. Now, let me ask you this because I've been in many different cultures, some that work forever cultures, and some feels like they're barely working, so to speak, type things. Sometimes when you work regularly 50 to 55 hours, just for example set, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're down to 40, how do you help those crazy high achievers feel like that success and you could still do it quote unquote only in 40 where they want to? I bet you have people who like want to work more. You said you kind of have to kick people out. How do you help them still feel successful to like get it in? It's okay to be gone.
We've just built that culture. Like I said, I've this company was a piece of software that was designed inside my last company, which I started in 2003. So you're looking at 23 years of building that culture, and I mean, I've got my chief product officer with me 16 years, my desktop technician for all hardware and compliance stuff is 15 years. My personal assistant's been with me for like 12 years. Like we've got some longevity here. CTO's been with me 10, 12 years. Like we've got some longevity with us. And it's just the culture that we built. Like salespeople are different. Like I said, there's times when they're on trade shows, and let's face it, they're at the trade show floor by 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're bed after the last party at 1 in the morning.
Sure.
Yeah, we do 15 or 20 trade shows a year. That's the lifestyle when you're on the trade show. If you don't want it, you don't have to go. We'll send somebody else. We have enough salespeople, somebody else will want to go, because that's, you're going to come back with 30, 40, 50 opportunities. That's,
Right.
crazy. So I have sales, generally speaking, the salespeople will tend to want to work those extra hours because they have contacts going on. And, their lifestyle is like, hey, I've got nothing going on. I might as well work because I have an opportunity to make more money because of commission structure. Where like the rest of our support teams and everything else, they're on salary. So for generally speaking, as long as they get their job done, and we had a situation where there was a major attack last year, Q3
Hmm.
of last year. AI came out with some new type of attack that got around all fraud vendors in the marketplace.
Wow.
We're talking about big companies too. We were the first to solve it, and it's because my chief product officer, who headed up that initiative, was working nights and days. We're working nights and weekends, and he probably put in 80, 90 hours, because this is his, like, after I finished writing the first couple of versions, it became his. He's been working on it longer than I have, and he's taken it to a whole new level. And we still have clients say, hey, I've tested other solutions, you're the only solution solving this problem. It's because he was willing to do that, and we compensate him in other ways, right? But
Sure.
want to thank him for that effort. Don't want to let it go unrecognized, but it's rare, in our culture to do that, because we want people to go home and spend dinner with their families. We want them to go home and spend time with their kids. Like, that was important to me.
Yep.
Whether it's important to you or not, you have something you'd rather be doing. Let's face it, most people have something they'd rather be doing than working, right? Golfing,
Sure.
swimming,
Sure.
sitting by a
Yeah. Yeah.
beach,
You hope.
right? But we all have to work to make money. So we try to make sure we get it all done inside the 8 to 5 hours that we work, 45 hours a week, 1 hour for lunch. Really, it's a 40-hour work week. Try to get it all done. But like I said, and maybe more successful companies don't encourage that. I know Apple many, many times was giving out T-shirts for people working 90 hours a week. You see it in one of the videos, like, hey, you're part of the 90-hour team. Like, who wants that lifestyle? Right? I have I'll give you a perfect example. I had somebody who I hired. I don't remember what year I hired. No, I do. 2006. I hired 2000. I hired him in 2006. He started January 2007, and he was with me for a while. Became, and he was my started off as a webmaster, and I wrote the initial code. So I wouldn't let him touch the code for 6 months. So
No, you.
that's how non-trusting I was. But eventually he took over the code, and as he grew up, he became the CTO of the company. And then he left me and he went to Amazon. And he's like, it was big because he was with us since he was 19 years old, and now he's a man who's got married. All this stuff is going on, and we're like talking, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm like, well, why? And he's like, well, it's the money. I'm like, well, how much? He goes, it's like 4x what you're paying me. I'm like, I go, if you're my own son, I would tell you to take the damn job, right?
Right.
He took the job, and he found out that the way big tech works is they pay you big money in the first 2 years. They burn you out, and then they get fresh blood in, and every 2 years they're rotating people to get and just burn them out to get the most out of them. And I'm like, that's not a lifestyle. He called me back, and he now heads to the Texas office again.
Yeah.
He said he talked to all his family. He was miserable, just wasn't happy. And everyone says, you were really happy when you were working for Rich. Call him up, see if there's an opportunity. And I'm like, all right, you coming back to Delaware? He's like, well, I found another girl down here in Texas. I'm going to probably want to stay. I'm like, fine, go find me an office in Texas. I'll build an office in Texas, because we're in Middletown, Delaware. So when I'm trying to find people, it's a small pool of people, but you're in Texas, you got a big pool of people. It'd be great to have some talent down there, and you can head the office up down there. So, it's those kind of stories that, like I said, will we ever be a billion-dollar company? No, just because maybe we're not putting in all that extra effort that everybody else does. But it's a lifestyle that is important to me and my wife, who we're still partners in the business, and we want that. We want to share that with our staff.
I really enjoyed this conversation, and that's once again, for those who are listening, I think once again, those who haven't been a part of the podcast, I have a few questions. I told this Rich ahead of time. I have a few questions that were common, but I typically go where it seems to need to go, and it's where the connection I do have with the person I'm with. what matters to them, and then I typically go with curiosity type questions. So I did not, just to clarify, I did not plan on this viewpoint, but I love it. Like I love the context behind this because hey, we're human, right? Even though we're business owners and we do the respective things we have, what matters the most is all this other stuff that's going on in our life. And when you have some sense of peace around that, and you it I feel like we're so much more complete, right?
Yeah.
Behind things, and have a lot more peace at the end of the day, behind what's taking place. But I do want to spend a few minutes for people to learn about your business, Rich. I mean, we just talked about it a little bit briefly. Tell us more about your business. What problems are you solving for your clients?
So let's paint a picture on it, right? So I have 2024 numbers, 2025 numbers I'm still waiting for to come out. Still pulling all that together. But in 2024, as a global society, we spent north of $700 billion in digital marketing. I think it was the first year it tipped over traditional marketing. Huge number, right?
Wow.
Now, here's what I bring this story up once in a while. I'm Shark Tank, love looking at entrepreneurs coming up with unique ideas and stuff like that. But what I bring that up is when they talk about like, okay, we're going to get into diaper business, and it's a $3 billion market, and it's this massive market, and we just want a little piece of the pie, and blah blah blah. And they talk about that. So we're talking $700 billion is digital marketing. It's massive. Well, based on our conservative estimates, $140 billion was stolen by fraudsters. So bots clicking on ads, right? So when you look at, it's a 3 billion, a $10 billion market, this is a $140 billion market with no laws against it. Now we all know it's stealing, but prove it legally. You can't. There's no
Yeah.
way to prove that legally. And most of it takes place overseas, so privacy laws go out the window, and it's almost a crimeless, it's almost a lawless crime that's
Mhm.
taken place. So that money right there represents let's call it 25%. I think it's 23% or something like that. Let's just call it 25% to keep it simple. That means $1 in 4 that every digital marketer is spending on digital marketing is lost to fraud, which means that dollar is not going to convert for you. So if I'm able to identify that traffic and help you mitigate that traffic and reinvest that back into your advertising budget, you're going to see a significant lift in ROAS. And that is what I'm looking to help our clients do. Now, what happens in practice, we help people like we do free trials. Like people want to know how much fraud I have. I'm a developer. So I wrote my first game when I was 9 years old. I got published in Compute Gazette when I was 12. So I've been doing this my whole life, right? My whole mantra is to help somebody solve a problem. So my first thing is when we're selling this product is, hey, do you have a problem that I can solve? Let's find out. So we run a free trial, run some traffic for a couple of weeks, and we look at the number. How much fraud do you have? And on average, it's 25%. Some people way more, some people a little bit less, but there's always some amount of fraud that's there that we can help them resolve. And then they can do the ROI numbers to see if it makes sense. Hey, I'm spending $100,000 a month in digital marketing. $25,000 is lost to fraud. It's going to cost a couple $1,000 to solve it. Does it make sense? Yes, let's move forward. If the number answer is no, then it doesn't make sense to work together because I don't want to charge you more than it's costing you in fraud. Like if you're spending $500 a month, it doesn't make sense to work together. But these are the kinds of things that we look for. But the conversations that I get from clients that have been working with us for a couple of months or a couple of years is like, oh my God, you've transformed my business. We even
Oh,
had one company who's like, we were on our asses. We were really about to lose our business, and you came along and pinpointed the problems. We
oof.
jumped on it with your team right away, and now we're growing like gangbusters. Um, Even had a customer the other day say, "Hey, we love your technology so much. Is it for sale?"
Love it.
So and no, we're not for sale right now. We're growing our company. We're focusing on certain things. We're trying to solve the next iteration of trying to figure out what the next iteration of fraud is going to look like, so we can stay ahead of it. We got a lot of fun, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, it's interesting to see how that plays out.
So I'm kind of curious, what size of companies are looking for your services? Is it small business? Is it mid-sized business? Is it large businesses? Like who is what dollar threshold of advertising where they need to be more thoughtful about making that more efficient? Like where does it make sense?
So the best way to look at it is how much they spend in digital marketing because we come up across publicly traded companies that don't spend money in digital marketing. Everything's organic. And then we come across the one man shop that's spending $1 million a month in digital marketing. So the size of the company is less material, more so how much they're spending, because it's an ROI calculation. So we've come up with where it makes, I mean, we've worked with companies smaller than this, but generally speaking, about $50,000 a month in spend. If the average catches 25%, that's 12,500 in fraud. Yeah, ROI is big time there. It makes sense. I've worked with companies that spend 10 or 15,000, and it still made sense for them to work with us. So, but generally speaking, like if we're targeting people at least 50,000 or more, or close to that number, makes perfect sense, because then the ROI is there. But I've had a company spending, I think the smallest company we took on was spending $2,000 a month. They didn't care because they were on a growth trajectory. They knew where they were going, and
Mm.
they knew they needed to solve this problem before they got there. Like they couldn't wait, and it made sense to move. And like I said, I always go for an ROI type close to say, hey, if it only costs $1,000 for a service and I'm saving you 12,000, that's a big ROI. Like it makes sense. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're really always looking for those numbers where it makes the most sense. But depends on the client.
Yeah, good stuff there. Okay, work with your clients. Actually, you said some information there. So, how do you measure success with your clients?
That's the question we always ask during the demo. Like we're doing a demo and they're like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's move forward. Great. I'm going to send you paper for the trial. What makes the decision to move forward with us? Like what's important to you? What are you looking for in this quick, 2-week trial that we're going to put together for you? Because at the end of the day, I need to know if we're successful, you know, because I want to know, hey, if you found 20% fraud, if you found more than 10% fraud, like what's your number that you're looking for?
Mhm.
And if they're just like, well, I just want to see what the number looks like they're not as serious as buyer. Like we'll still run the trial and everything else and do our best, but we're trying to find a guy that makes sense. Like we spoke to a very large brand, probably a Fortune 500, Fortune 100, and they're like, if you can help us solve 3% fraud, if you can reduce 3% of our fraud, whatever our fraud number is just reduce it by 3%, we're in.
Wow.
It's a big contract too, so I'm like, I want that contract. And I don't think that's hard to, and especially they're spending money in the programmatic space, which is known to have over 50% fraud.
Mm,
So being able to reduce 3% is very easy for us.
mhm,
We're used to taking a 25% and cutting it in half in the first 90 days. Whatever their fraud is, that's our typical goal is like whatever your fraud is, we want to cut it in half in 90 days. And then once we get it in half, cut it in half again. We want to go down as far as we can get it down. Usually it's sub 5%. We'll get them under. You can almost never get rid of purchasing that fraud up front, because it's new traffic sources coming in and everything else. But we have the ability to get them down to where it's very very minimal, and we can still protect their site in real time.
mm,
So we can prevent them from having false leads being filtered in. We work with gaming companies that prevent their people from. This is something I didn't even know. A company came to us, a large gaming company out of Germany, a company called Gagen, and what they were having was people were going into the game, creating using bots to create fake accounts, playing certain levels, and then selling that user ID so people can bypass the levels. And I had this conversation with my team, and they're like, we're solving the problem. We're finding stuff that they were missing. Like the company loves us. And one of my developers, or one of my, I should say, my support engineers, turned around and he says, yeah, I hate playing games like that when bots are involved. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, when I'm physically in the game, I can see a herd of people moving in the same direction, making turns. He goes, I know those are all bots. So like visually you can see the bots, but how do you programmatically identify and eliminate them? That's where we come into
mm.
play. So our technology is used for a lot of different things, and it's just fun to see it in action.
That's cool. That's good stuff there. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the personal side. We're gonna hit a little bit more on it right now. And you've been a busy man. You've had a great career. I love it how you've talked about you've been with your family over a period of time. But I'm always curious in business owners' habits. Yeah. So, what is a specific habit or two that you do on a personal nature that has helped you be consistent performer?
It's hard to say. Like I said, growing up, I was very much more like into a lot of things. Like I did martial arts for 17 years. I was invited to the 2000 Olympics to compete.
Wow.
Didn't want to give up, the house I just bought. I just had the second child, and I just got my first big boy job, and it was like you got to sell all that, close it all up, move to Korea for 2 years, and train for 7 days a week. I'm like, I stepped back and I thought, how cool would it be? But I had to say no. Um, and stuff like that, I guess early on set in. Pick something you want to do and just get it done. You
Mm,
know,
mhm,
same with business. Like if I have an idea, I can't tell you how many all nighters I pulled, like solving a problem. Like there's a problem, and I just can't go to bed and rest until I solve that problem. And it's just part of my nature, I guess. It's a little bit easier now because I have people to do that for me, staff and everything else. So I'm more running the business. So I'm a little less. I got probably the last time I wrote code for the project was probably like 6 or 7 years ago,
mhm.
early on. I haven't written code. Now I look at the code over my developer's shoulders, and I'm like, I'm out of the game for a while. I'm a little rusty. They're talking different languages. I'm not even sure that I haven't touched yet. So I don't know. It's those. I don't know. For me, it's been always I'm here at the office, work, work, work. Come 5 o'clock, I want to go spend time with the family. Now it wasn't like that in the beginning.
Sure.
In the beginning, all nighters were common. Work until 8, 9, 10. Finish up. I would have dinner with the family, then go back to my home office at that time, and work till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I don't have to do that anymore. And in some respects, I like that. In some respects, I miss that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can resemble and appreciate everything you said there. So, well said. So now, how do you now measure success in your personal life?
I don't measure it. It's more of a feeling. Because now I have grandkids. Changes the game. I have a almost 2 year old, a 1 year old, and a 3 month, a 4 month old. And I'm sure there's more coming. I got four kids, so and they're all. I have four kids in 5 years, so that that's like popcorn. It's going to all happen at once. If they all have as many kids as they say, I'll have 14. But I think that's changed, especially after the first two had their first two children and realized, oh, yeah, mom and dad made it look easy, you know. But I don't measure it. It's just more of a feeling. Like, am I spending enough time, with them? Because now it's at the stage where the first one's starting to talk, starting to call us by name, and that's like we do one thing that's important to us is making sure that we do a family vacation at least once a year because it's.
Mm,
I remember we took a vacation a couple of years back. It was a European cruise where I remember telling sitting the kids down, like, look, this is probably the last time the six of us, the four kids and me and my wife, are going to be on a trip together. You guys all have boyfriends, girlfriends, getting
yep.
engaged, all that stuff starting to happen, and it's with work schedules. It's hard to get everybody together. We're going to do our best. So like last year we did a cruise. We set up a cruise for the entire family. So now it's four kids and then four significant others plus any grandkids. So last year my son couldn't make it because his daughter, his baby, was just too young to go on a cruise, so he missed out on the cruise. It's like you're trying to get everybody. So this year we just got back from Disney, and thankfully we got all eight of the kids, plus the three grandkids. So the 13 of us that went, and it was great. Like to me, that's success. When you can get everybody under one roof. The holidays come along. They split. Sometimes one holiday go to this one, so it's very rare you get everybody under one roof. So we try to, by mom and dad paying for the vacation, it's kind of incentive for them to all make it.
Yeah, yeah, that's that. Well, yeah, we just it's funny you talk about that story because we just had over in December. We took our trip. We went to Cancun. It's one of our particular resort we go to. We love, and it's going to be the last time that all four kids are because now one of them's getting married, and so
Yeah,
it's the dynamic's going to change. And so we were very appreciative that everyone was able to make it because it's gonna be, as you know, it's a different experience. It's a new experience. It's an amazing experience. You get a grandparent thing, which I don't even know what that's like yet, but it's an amazing thing with that. Rich, how
yeah.
can people? This has been. I really appreciate this conversation. I think what you're doing from a business perspective is really fascinating. I love it how you've learned how to. I hate to use the term balance, but you learned to. It sounds like to me maximize your family and your business through being able to be effective. What's worked for you, I think that's been a great story behind that. You really get some good components on how to help grow a business and be more effective. But tell me, from your perspective, how can people connect, get to know, learn a bit more about what you're doing? What's the best way to get connected to you?
So two ways to get connected with me. I'm on LinkedIn, very easy to find. Rich Kahn, Kahn. Really easy to find. I'm posting constant. Like I do podcasts all the time, and my team takes the snippets of some of the good stuff, like the good Q&As, and make short form content and post it. I'm going to be adding some additional content that's not through podcasts on there soon, but I'm posting a couple times a week. To find out about our company and the product is just Anura, ANURA.io, or .com. Either one will get you there. And probably the first resource if you're trying to learn about this is it's tagged right at the top of the site. It's the ultimate guide to ad fraud. It's an 80-page document we published probably mid last year. Um, it's got 10 different chapters in it, real easy to read content, but it gives you a good bird's eye view of what's going on in the space. And then we have tons of ebooks, case studies, documents. We have the University of Delaware, since that's right up the road from us. Their students are writing all kinds of stuff that interesting, like how was their ad fraud affected when Russia invaded Ukraine? You
Mm.
know, it was big changes, and we have graphs and charts that show all what was going on. So it's like it makes you think, like what was going on. But there's lots of different stuff on there, and then we publish probably 2-3 blogs a week
Mm.
on the site, just talking about different subtopics, short 5-minute reads, real quick and simple. So if they really want to learn about the space, that's a great resource to take advantage of.
Rich, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
I appreciate it. Thanks. It was fun.
To everyone who's listening, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Rich Kahn. It's always great to talk with a seasoned entrepreneur. He's been able to learn and connect and stay with his family, which I always think is a huge kudos to that. And he has a great business that's growing and it's really making a difference. So once again, I encourage you to, whether you follow Rich Kahn on LinkedIn, or go to his website at Anura.io or .com. Encourage you to go to that. As we always like to say on the Measure Success podcast, wishing you the very best in measuring your success. Have a great day.